Cambridge portrait. Showcasing. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge's first official portrait was recently released. The BBC reported that the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge have had their official portrait painted together for the first time. The portrait, painted by award-winning British portrait artist Jamie Correth, has gone on display at the University of Cambridge's Fitzwilliam Museum. The artwork of Prince William and Catherine was commissioned last year by the Cambridgeshire Royal Portrait Fund as a gift to the people of the county. Correth said creating it was the most extraordinary privilege of my life. The royal couple met the painter while visiting the Fitzwilliam Museum earlier to see the portrait during its first day on public display. The artist chose to honour the city of Cambridge by using the tones and colours of many of its historical stone buildings in the background of the portrait, as well as using a hexagonal architectural motif seen on buildings across the city. While the painting is on display at the museum, the Cambridgeshire Royal Portrait Fund plans to use it to encourage children and young people from the county to take an interest in art. Correth said he wanted to portray the royal couple as both relaxed and approachable, as well as elegant and dignified. He said, as it is the first portrait to depict them together, and specifically during their time as the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, I wanted the image to evoke a feeling of balance between their public and private lives. In the portrait, the Duchess is wearing a dress from Brighton-based brand The Vampire's Wife, reports British Vogue. The label was founded by Susie Cave, who is married to musician Nick Cave. Prince William previously had his official portrait painted in 2014 by Cardiff-born artist Dan Llewellyn-Hall, who became the youngest person to paint the Queen in 2013. But what do the critics say about this portrait? Well, in an article by Sarah Rose Sharp in something called Hyperallergic, she writes, it is so hard to find a good portrait artist these days. June 23rd saw the reveal of a new portrait of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, and critics wasted no time registering their opinions about it. Executed by award-winning British portrait artist Jamie Correth, the painting was commissioned by the Cambridgeshire Royal Portrait Fund and features visual symbols of the county from which the couple draws their titles, including a background palette referencing stone buildings of Cambridge and, on the Duchess's dress, a special brooch that once belonged to Princess Augusta, 19th century Duchess of Cambridge, loaned to Middleton by Queen Elizabeth II. As it is the first portrait to depict them together, and specifically during their time as the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, Correth explained about wanting a feeling of balance, etc. Oh, Jamie, writes the author of the article, as every high-profile portrait artist, from Amy Sherrill to Ian Rank, broadly can tell you that you can't please all the people. But the latter can certainly attest that critics reserve particular vitriol for portraits of beloved royals that they find lacking. The real Duchess of Cambridge cheers everyone up with her radiant smile, wrote Daily Mail columnist A.N. Wilson. However, the figure in this painting is wistful, slightly petulant, and actually unrecognisable as our Kate. It also has made her body a rather weird shape inside the glossy green dress. Well, looking at it, I can see that it's Kate, and I can see that it's William. They look a little bit different from what they ordinarily would do, but of course, that's the nature of a still. When you look at a photograph of someone, that often can look quite different to the person that you know when they're moving in front of you. But they're both recognisable as who they are. The dress in question, the article's writer continues to tell us, is a shimmery emerald sheath by a brand called The Vampire's Wife, engendering speculation by Gawker writer Claire Carasillo that the uncanniness of the portrait is due to his involvement in an unholy Dorian Gray-style bargain that will preserve the royal couple in their youthful visage through time immemorial. Although if we're talking about unnaturally prolonged lifespans, perhaps haunted portraits are the secret to 96-year-old Queen Elizabeth's 70-year reign, the longest of any monarch in the history of the United Kingdom. Rachel Campbell Johnston interpreted that waxy eternal youth quite negatively in the Times, noting, The couple pose like mannequins made to advertise a modern monarchy, but if you want to meet them in replica, you would probably do better to go to Madame Tussauds. Ooh. Frankly, all of this seems a bit picky. The whole nature of painted portraiture relies upon a history that largely predates film and digital photography. No one complains about resemblance with Rembrandt's subjects because, unlike the modern royal family, they were not photo-documented within an inch of their lives every time they left the house. Perhaps the most astute observation came from the Telegraph's chief art critic, Alistair Sooke, who said the portrait suits the Instagram era in that it resembles a smartphone snap layered with various effects. This is correct. The informality of the pose is strange, with both subjects looking away from the viewer in a manner that can only be described as off-camera, not with the stolid middle-distance air of a subject gazing regally into the future, but of two people briefly distracted on the red carpet by something mildly interesting happening behind the viewer. You look at the painting and immediately look over your shoulder to see what's going on. The highlights, especially on the dress, feel like filter work, especially as the portrait seems to shift the palette of the garment from green to teal. Overall, the feel is that rather than stand for the portrait, Middleton picked a snapshot she liked and sent it over. "This one, we both look hot in this one," she might have said. And they do. For their part, the couple seemed happy enough at the painting's reveal at the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge, though who can really say, since the studied diplomacy of this pair is among their most defining features. Whether or not Correth captured the inner life of Kate and William, he certainly managed to showcase their talent for standing attractively and inoffensively in a room. And at this point, what else are royals for, anyway? But is this a form of showcasing? After all, is a portrait of the two of them needed? And by agreeing to pose for it and having that portrait, is this then in fact showcasing themselves? Are they showing off? Well, showcasing is one of numerous narcissistic traits. Others include anger, jealousy, vanity, resemblance, pride, argumentative, infidelity, and others besides. And remember, everybody has narcissistic traits. I have them. You have them. Empathic people have them. Normal people have them. Narcissistic people have them. We all have those narcissistic traits. For those of you who are not narcissists, invariably your narcissistic traits are kept in check by your empathic traits, where you're empath or normal, so that those narcissistic traits function in a healthy way. You take pride in your appearance without it causing a problem for somebody. You like your house to look attractive, so there's a degree of vanity about that, but not to the extent of causing problems for your family in its maintenance and upkeep. You're defiant when pushed, but not to the point of being intransigent and obstreperous. You will exhibit a degree of selfishness in order to preserve and look after yourself, but not to the extent of causing problems for somebody else, because you've learned to share. Narcissistic people, of course, have stronger narcissistic traits, which come to the fore more often than their empathic traits, and of course we, the narcissists, are governed repeatedly by our narcissistic traits exhibiting that fury, jealousy, envy, vanity, showcasing, argumentative, and more besides. Are the Cambridges engaging in showcasing? Well, yes they are, because they've posed for a portrait which is now on display, so they're being shown off. However, it is not being done in a way that's causing harm for anybody. The artist was paid for his work. It wasn't a case that they said, paint us, but you can do this gratis. There'll be many of you who are creators, particularly in the fields of art, who will have come across those individuals who'll say, I'll give you an opportunity to showcase your work by painting something for me, but I don't expect you to charge me for it. There'll be those who are involved in photography who will well remember those supposed influencers, the selfish ones, who come along and say, would you like to do a portfolio which will be displayed on my page? I've got 10,000 followers, and of course it'd be great exposure for you. Of course, those of you who are creators will know that exposure doesn't pay the fucking bills. And the fact that the Cambridges, of course, didn't pay for it themselves, but it came from another source, doesn't detract from the fact that the artist was paid. Nobody was harmed in the creation of this. Nobody's offended by it. And therefore the showcasing is legitimate and is kept within the empathic traits. whether you like the picture or not, is immaterial to the issue of showcasing. But the point of this is to utilise this recent event to demonstrate to you a narcissistic trait, but demonstrate that it comes across in a way that isn't harmful. And therefore, it is not always the case that narcissistic traits are problematic. Indeed, they will often function in an appropriate way. Somebody who takes pride in their work wants to ensure that they deliver the very best, and so that they work hard, but that doesn't mean that they cause a problem for anybody else in putting in those extra hours to create that presentation, or staying behind to ensure that they work after hours to ensure that your lawn has been manicured beautifully. And the point is that all individuals have narcissistic traits, but their manifestation varies depending upon the type of person. And of course, with William being a normal, he will have lower showcasing traits, sort of below the 50% mark. With Kate, with Catherine, she may well have stronger showcasing traits, but her stronger empathic traits as an empath mean that they will keep them in check, save when, of course, there's a diminution of those empathic traits under emotional empathy caused by an external stressor. Now, one could imagine what would be the situation if Harry's wife had a portrait undertaken. Well, of course, as a consequence of this portrait appearing, it wounded Harry's wife and resulted in yet more of the PR puff pieces that we've seen. And, of course, the release of the photograph with regard to the apparent alarm that she has expressed with regard to the Roe against Wade overturning decision. Harry's wife would be more likely to have something grandiose, that she would want to have something that portrayed her perhaps as some kind of Amazonian woman, grappling lightning bolts from out of the sky, one foot placed upon the Prince of Pink Pancakes as he's there on all fours beneath her, denoting his submissive state. Whilst, of course, I joke in part, Harry's wife, having no empathic traits to keep in check, her narcissistic traits of pride, vanity, and showcasing would be more likely to have something more grandiose, and, of course, would herald its arrival with much greater fanfare than the Cambridges have done so. They, of course, released a picture of the portrait through their relevant social media account, and it's been covered in the press, but Harry's wife would ensure that there were salivating supine arse-kissers queuing up to sing their praises for the portrait. And therefore, the appearance of the portrait provides me with a useful opportunity to demonstrate the differences in the way that a particular narcissistic trait is wielded and manifests. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.